Ringside Review. So we got some sad news coming out of the world of boxing, and that is boxing legend George Forman passed away yesterday, March 21st, 2025. Now, George Forman was born on January 10th, 1949 in Marshall, Texas. He grew up in Houston's 5th Ward, W-A-R-D. I know it's hard for me to, my Midwest accent, but grew up in Houston, and he faced numerous hardships. Now, also 1949 was during the Jim Crow era of the South. But Forman often found himself in trouble during his youth, leading him to drop out of school in the 9th grade. However, his life took position when he turned to join the job corps in 1965 when he discovered his passion for boxing. Former boxing journey game in the 1960s, gained national attention, winning a gold medal in the heavyweight division in 1968, the Mexican Olympics. And if y'all remember, that was during the Black Power movement, and what George Forman did, he was waving the American flag during that point after he won. He turned professional in 1965. Forman quickly established himself as a formidable force in the heavyweight division. Some of his notable fights I want to go over. 1973, Forman won the world heavyweight title by defeating unbeaten Joe Frazier. And if y'all go back and watch the fight, it's online. I mean, he destroyed Joe Frazier, who was also a historical fighter. 1974, arguably one of the biggest known fights of all time, the Rumble in the Jungle in Zaire, when Forman faced Muhammad Ali, but that's when he suffered his first professional loss. I believe Muhammad Ali was 32, and George Forman might have been like 25, 26, with young men. But also one thing that George Forman did, when at the age of 45, Forman was the oldest person to win a world title against Michael Moore. But that was a devastating knockout. I actually remember watching that fight as a young boy. But some of the things I do want to, belts he won: the WBA heavyweight title, the WBC heavyweight title. He was also lineal champion back when it was when boxing wasn't so disorganized, and we actually knew who the actual champions was. A lot of people thought he was going to delete Ali in the ring, but of course Ali ended up beating him. But also, not only was George Forman a formidable force in the ring, but outside the ring. And for everybody who was born or grew up in the 90s and 2000s, you remember the George Forman grill. Put the burgers on there and the steaks on there, and it cook itself. Now, it originally went to Hulk Hogan, but he didn't want it. George Forman put his name on it, came out with the Forman grill. Everybody I know had one. They didn't cost that much, and they did the job well. That pretty much made George Forman a $100 millionaire, and which the Forman grills ended up selling over 100 million worldwide. And in 1999, he sold his naming rights for $140 million. And he had a huge car collection and all of that, right? He's been set for the rest of his life. A couple more things I want to highlight about George Forman. He seemed like he was one of the nicest guys. He always gave a lot of great interviews. He never was like punch drunk. I could always understand the words he was saying. He seemed like, and like I said, him living to be what 77, which is pretty average life for a man. But you guys know, when it comes to boxing, sometimes these fighters don't live long with all the punishment they taken, but George Forman was able to still live a long life. He's also somebody that people would want to be. You never really heard a lot of controversy with him. And it's unique. I believe all his kids' name is George Forman or Georgina. Like they got some form of his name. But boxing will never be the same. It's sad to see a lot of these legends go. Muhammad Ali passed away several years ago, and Joe Frazier is gone now, and George Foreman's crossed over in history. They were, to me, when it comes to the heavyweight division, that might have been the crown jewel. Some people say the 90s were, and I can see where people's perspective is, but I'm talking about, you had all them people, Ken Norton in there too. It was so many people in the heavyweight division, and that's when the heavyweights truly were the crown of all the sports. Football, basketball, baseball, you name it, the heavyweights were making the most money. And the fact that Ali and George Foreman fought outside in Zaire, Africa, that might have been the only time we've ever seen a big mega fight like that in Africa. Also, if I remember correctly, the fight was on satellite in closed circuit at the movie theaters. So it wasn't like pay-per-view existed and all of that back then. So he was part of that. And like I said, a great businessman outside the ring. But, George Foreman will be missed. There'll probably never be another person like him. He seemed like a great guy all the way around. Forever a legend. But I just want to get my quick thoughts about it. Rest in peace, George Foreman, one of the GOATs. Let me know what y'all think.